The alarm shrieked through the corridors of the Galactic Defense Station, its piercing wail cutting through the usual hum of machinery. Admiral Thekvar's four eyes widened as he read the emergency report on his datapad. The Zephyrian Armada had broken through the outer defenses of the Centauri system, and their bioships were heading straight for the civilian colonies. "How many ships?" he barked at his communications officer. 300 confirmed, sir. Maybe more hiding behind the asteroid field." The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew what 300 Zephyrian vessels could do to a populated system. The insectoid aliens didn't take prisoners, and their acid-spitting bioships could dissolve entire cities in minutes. "Sir," the tactical officer's voice trembled, "our nearest fleet is 6 hours away. The colonies have maybe 2 hours before—" "I know," Thekvar cut him off. He stared at the tactical display showing the approaching swarm of enemy ships. Then his expression changed as an idea struck him. It was crazy, desperate, but it might work. "Get me Captain Chen," he ordered. Several officers exchanged glances. Captain Chen wasn't even supposed to be on the station today. According to the roster, she was on leave, attending something called high school on Earth. But everyone in the Galactic Defense Force knew about Captain Chen, even if they'd never met her. The holographic communicator flickered to life, showing a modest bedroom with posters of ancient Earth musicians on the walls. A teenage human girl appeared on screen, her dark hair messy, wearing what appeared to be sleepwear covered in small cartoon animals. "Admiral," she said, stifling a yawn. "What's the situation?" Thekvar quickly briefed her on the Zephyrian attack. As he spoke, he watched her transformation. The sleepy teenager disappeared, replaced by something harder, more focused. Her brown eyes became calculating, strategic. "How many ships can you give me?" she asked. "I can spare a squadron. 12 fighters." Captain Chen was quiet for a moment. "I'll need Lieutenant Cass and Sergeant Ornak if they're available." "And Admiral? Send the ships to these coordinates." She rattled off a series of numbers that put her requested rendezvous point directly in the path of the Zephyrian advance. "Captain, that's suicide, even for you." A small smile crossed her face. "Trust me, Admiral. I've got math homework due tomorrow. I'm not planning to miss it." The transmission ended. Within minutes, 12 of the station's fastest interceptors were launching toward what seemed like certain death, following the orders of a 17-year-old human girl who should have been worrying about dating and grades instead of galactic warfare. The other species in the Galactic Defense Force had learned not to question human tactics even when they seemed insane, especially when they seemed insane. There was something about the way humans fought that defied conventional military wisdom. They were unpredictable, creative, and absolutely ruthless when protecting others. But Captain Chen was different even among humans. She'd been fighting in galactic conflicts since she was 14, after the Proxima incident where her colony transport had been attacked. Somehow she'd managed to repel 3 Vorthak destroyers using nothing but a cargo hauler and what she called applied physics. Admiral Thekvar watched his tactical display as 12 tiny blips raced toward 300 enemy ships. According to every military simulation, mathematical model, and strategic analysis, those 12 ships were about to be vaporized. The Zephyrians had superior numbers, better armor, and bioships that could adapt to almost any weapon. What they didn't have was a human teenager who'd spent her morning studying calculus and was now thoroughly annoyed at being woken up early. The first reports came in 18 minutes later. The advanced scout ships of the Zephyrian fleet had simply vanished from sensors. Not destroyed with the usual debris patterns, not retreating. "Just gone." "Admiral," the communications officer called out, "I'm getting strange readings from the asteroid field. The Zephyrians appear to be regrouping." Regrouping was not something Zephyrians did. Their hive mind made them incredibly coordinated but also predictable. They attacked in waves, never stopping, never hesitating. For them to pause meant something had gone very wrong. 23 minutes after the engagement began, Captain Chen's voice crackled through the comm system. "Admiral, you might want to dispatch some cleanup crews to coordinates 445.7 by 892.3, and maybe send a science team. I think the Zephyrians were trying some kind of new biotech, keyword being were. Captain, what's your status? All ships accounted for. 0 casualties. We're heading back to base. Oh, and Admiral, next time something like this happens during school hours, could you maybe call Lieutenant Morrison first? I've got a chemistry test I really can't miss." The chemistry test was a disaster. Sarah Chen sat in the back row of Mr. Peterson's classroom, staring at questions about molecular bonds and reaction rates. Her pencil tapped nervously against the desk as she tried to remember the difference between ionic and covalent bonds. But her mind kept drifting to the elegant way Zephyrian bioships had exploded when she'd introduced certain electromagnetic frequencies to their neural networks. "Miss Chen," Mr. Peterson's voice cut through her thoughts. "Eyes on your own paper." Sarah looked up to find half the class staring at her. She'd been unconsciously drawing tactical formations in the margin of her test. Quickly erasing the battle plans, she tried to refocus on the questions about chemical equations. The problem was that high school chemistry seemed almost insultingly simple after spending years working with alien technologies. When you'd modified plasma cannons using principles that human science was still discovering, memorizing the periodic table felt pointless. Her phone buzzed quietly in her pocket. A text from Admiral Tekvar. "Emergency briefing in 20 minutes. Kretak rebellion in the Vega system." Sarah glanced at the clock. She still had 30 minutes left on her test. She raised her hand. "Mr. Peterson, I need to use the restroom." "Test isn't finished, Miss Chen. It's an emergency." The teacher sighed and waved her away. Sarah grabbed her backpack and headed for the door, ignoring the whispers that followed her. She knew what they were saying. The same things they always said. In the hallway, she ducked into an empty classroom and activated her military communicator, a device disguised as a normal smartphone case. "Admiral, I'm here." The holographic display showed a war room filled with various alien species all looking grim. The Kretak were a warrior race known for their brutality and their habit of eating their enemies. "Captain Chen," Admiral Tekvar began, "the situation is deteriorating rapidly. The Kretak have taken 3 orbital stations and are threatening to execute the hostages unless their demands are met." "How many hostages?" Sarah asked, checking the time again. She had 15 minutes before her absence became obvious. 40,000 civilians. Mixed species, including a school transport with 300 children. Sarah's jaw tightened. Children always made it personal. "What forces do we have in the area?" 2 destroyers and a heavy cruiser. "But, Captain, the Kretak have positioned themselves in the middle of the civilian stations. Any direct assault would result in massive casualties." Sarah studied the tactical display showing the hostage situation. The Kretak were clever, she had to admit. They'd use the civilians as human shields, making conventional rescue impossible. "I'll need a fast ship and clearance to operate in civilian space," she said. "Captain, you're supposed to be in school." "Admiral, those are children up there." There was a pause. "Understood. I'm dispatching the Nighthawk to your location. Lieutenant Cass will pilot. You have operational command." "Thank you, sir." Chen out. She closed the communicator and checked her reflection in the classroom window. Still looked like a normal teenager. Sometimes she wondered if that was the problem. Maybe if she looked more like the hardened military officer she'd become, her classmates would understand why she was different. But then again, maybe they wouldn't want to understand. Maybe normal teenagers weren't supposed to know how to disable alien warships or plan rescue operations during lunch break. The school's fire alarm began ringing. Triggered by Sarah's remote access to the building's systems, students streamed out of classrooms, including her chemistry class. In the confusion, no one would notice her absence for at least an hour. She slipped out the back exit where Lieutenant Cass was waiting with a modified atmospheric shuttle designed to look like a food delivery vehicle. The deception was necessary. Officially, Earth was still a developing world under galactic law, not yet considered ready for full membership in the Defense Force. "Rough day at school, Captain?" Lieutenant Cass asked as they lifted off. The Altarian pilot's blue skin had a sympathetic tinge. "You have no idea," Sarah replied, already changing into her military uniform. "How long to the jump point?" 12 minutes. I've got the Nighthawk waiting in orbit." Sarah nodded, running through tactical options in her head. 40,000 civilians, 300 children. The Kretak were expecting a conventional military response, which meant they'd be prepared for destroyers and assault teams. What they wouldn't be expecting was a 17-year-old girl with a gift for creative problem-solving and a very short temper when it came to people who threatened. "Kids, Lieutenant," she said as Earth's atmosphere fell away behind them. "What do you know about Kretak mating rituals?" Cass's large eyes blinked in confusion. "I'm sorry, Captain?" "They're mating rituals. Specifically, how they respond to certain pheromone signatures. Well, I believe they become extremely aggressive and territorial when exposed to rival scent markers. But I don't see how that helps with— It helps, Sarah interrupted, her mind already working through the possibilities, because I'm about to turn their hostage situation into a nature documentary. The Nighthawk dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Vega system like a shadow, materializing from nothing. Sarah stood on the bridge, studying the tactical display that showed 3 orbital stations surrounded by Kretak warships, their crimson hulls gleaming menacingly in the light of Vega's twin suns. "Captain," reported Ensign Vex, "the ship's Zalarian sensor operator, the Kretak, are broadcasting demands. They want the Galactic Council to recognize their claim to the disputed territories." "Not happening," Sarah muttered. "The disputed territories contain 17 inhabited worlds with billions of civilians." "Show me the station layouts." The holographic display shifted to show detailed schematics of the 3 orbital platforms. Agricultural Station Ceres, Mining Platform Delta, and Civilian Hub Omega. The school transport was docked at Omega, along with thousands of other non-combatants. "Here's what we're going to do," Sarah said, her fingers dancing across the tactical console. "We're going to make the Kretak so angry at each other that they forget about the hostages." Lieutenant Cass looked confused. "Captain, the Kretak operate with hive-like coordination. Internal conflict is extremely rare. That's because they've never dealt with artificially synthesized territorial markers," Sarah replied. "Computer, access the xenobiology database. I need everything we have on Kretak pheromone sensitivity." Data streamed across her screen. The Kretak were ruled by complex social hierarchies based on scent markers. Alpha males could detect and respond violently to the presence of rivals, even at extremely low concentrations. "Ensign Vex, can our fabrication systems produce organic compounds?" "Yes, Captain, but what are you planning?" "We're going to convince 3 different groups of Kretak that they're each facing territorial challenges from the others. I want you to synthesize alpha male scent markers from 3 different Kretak clans. Make them strong enough to trigger aggressive responses but not so obvious that they'll trace them back to us." The bridge crew exchanged glances. Human tactics were often unconventional, but this was beyond unusual even for them. "Sir," Lieutenant Cass said carefully, "won't that put the hostages in even more danger?" "Only if we do it wrong," Sarah replied. "The key is timing. We're going to introduce the pheromones gradually, making each group think the others are preparing to challenge their authority. When they start posturing and threatening each other, they'll move their ships into defensive positions around their respective stations, creating gaps in their formation," Vex realized. "Exactly, and while they're busy measuring who has the bigger claws, we're going to extract the civilians through those gaps." The plan was risky, but it was better than a direct assault that would get thousands of people killed. Sarah had learned long ago that the best way to defeat an enemy wasn't always to fight them directly. Sometimes it was better to let them defeat themselves. "Beginning synthesis now," reported the ship's medical officer, a methodical Centaurian named Dr. Locke. "I can have the compounds ready in 15 minutes. "Good. Cass, I want you to take a stealth shuttle and deploy the pheromones using micro-dispersal drones. Make it look like natural atmospheric leakage from the station's life support systems." "Understood, Captain." While her crew prepared for the deception, Sarah opened a secure channel to the Galactic Defense Force Command. "Admiral Thekfer, this is Captain Chen. I need you to position your ships exactly where I'm transmitting coordinates to you. When this starts, it's going to get chaotic fast." "Captain, what exactly are you planning?" "I'm going to start the galaxy's first interspecies bar fight in space, with hostages, and make sure nobody gets hurt." There was a long pause. "Sometimes I think your species enjoys making simple things complicated." "Admiral, with respect, if it was simple, you wouldn't have called me during chemistry class." The next 20 minutes felt like hours. Sarah watched as Lieutenant Cass's stealth shuttle moved invisibly between the orbital stations, releasing microscopic drones that would disperse the synthetic pheromones into the air recycling systems. The Kretak wouldn't smell anything unusual at first, but their subconscious instincts would start responding within minutes. "First deployment complete," Cass reported. "Agricultural Station Ceres is now marked with Alpha Clan scent markers. Mining Platform Delta marked with Beta Clan markers," came the next report. "And Civilian Hub Omega with Gamma Clan." Cass finished, now came the waiting. Sarah had studied enough xenopsychology to know that Kretak responses to territorial challenges followed predictable patterns. First would come increased alertness and aggressive posturing, then defensive repositioning. Finally, if the perceived threat continued, direct confrontation. "Captain," Ensign Vex called out, "I'm detecting increased energy signatures from the Kretak vessels. Their weapon systems are powering up." "They're taking the bait," Sarah murmured. On the tactical display, she could see the enemy ships beginning to shift positions, each group moving to defend their respective stations from perceived threats from the other two groups. "Sir, the Kretak commanders are demanding explanations from each other," the communications officer reported. "They're accusing each other of preparing sneak attacks," Sarah smiled grimly. And in 3, 2, 1, the Kretak fleet erupted into chaos. 3 groups of warships suddenly found themselves pointing weapons at each other, instead of watching for external threats. The carefully coordinated hostage situation became a 3-way standoff, as ancient clan rivalries overrode military discipline. "Now," Sarah ordered, "all rescue teams launch immediately. We've got maybe 10 minutes before they figure out what happened." The real rescue mission was just beginning. 12 sleek rescue shuttles shot out from the Nighthawk like arrows from a bow, each one painted with civilian transponder codes to avoid triggering the Kretak sensors. Sarah piloted the lead shuttle herself, weaving between the increasingly agitated alien warships as they postured and threatened each other. "Rescue Alpha Team to Nighthawk," came Lieutenant Morrison's voice over the comm. "Agricultural station secured. Beginning civilian evacuation now." "Rescue Beta Team reporting," added Sergeant Ornak. "Mining platform Delta hostiles are too busy arguing to notice us. Proceeding with extraction." Sarah's shuttle approached civilian hub Omega where the school transport waited. This was the most dangerous extraction, because 300 children were harder to move quietly than adult workers. But it was also the most important. "Computer, scan the station for life signs," she ordered. "Multiple species detected. Approximately 15,000 civilians in the main habitat areas. 300 smaller life signs consistent with juvenile humanoids in Section C7. That's our target. Take us in through the maintenance bay." As they approached the station, Sarah could see Kretak warriors patrolling the corridors through the transparent aluminum viewports. They looked agitated, their normally disciplined formations becoming loose and disorganized as the artificial pheromones continued to affect their behavior. "Captain," her co-pilot whispered, "2 Kretak coming this way." Sarah quickly activated the shuttle's holoprojector, disguising their vessel as a food delivery transport. The aliens passed by without a second glance, too focused on defending their territory from imaginary threats. The maintenance bay was empty. Sarah and her team moved quickly through the service corridors, following the station schematic she'd memorized during the flight. The children were being held in what had been the station's primary school, a bitter irony that wasn't lost on her. "Remember," she told her team through the comm, "children from 12 different species. Some might not understand what's happening. Keep them calm and quiet." They reached the school's main corridor to find it guarded by 2 Kretak warriors. Sarah signaled her team to wait, then stepped around the corner. "Hey," she called out in perfect Kretak. "Commander Vextar wants you both at the command center immediately." Something about the Beta clan trying to board the station. The guards looked at each other nervously. The pheromones had them on edge, ready to believe any threat. They hurried away without questioning why a human teenager was giving them orders in their own language. "Clear," Sarah whispered into her comm. The classroom doors had been sealed with Kretak locks, but Sarah had come prepared. She attached a small device to the door mechanism and waited 30 seconds for it to decrypt the access codes. Inside, 300 children from across the galaxy sat huddled together. Humans, Altarians, Centaurians, Zilarians, and others, all looking scared and confused. Their teachers, mostly automated educational androids, had been deactivated. "Hello, everyone," Sarah said quietly, switching to Galactic Standard. "My name is Captain Chen. We're here to take you home." A small Altarian girl raised her hand. "Are you really a captain? You look like you're in high school." Sarah smiled. "I am in high school. I've got a chemistry test to make up when we get back. Now I need everyone to be very quiet and follow my team. We're going to play a game called Invisible Students, okay?" The children nodded eagerly. Sarah's team moved efficiently, organizing the kids into small groups and leading them through the service corridors toward the maintenance bay. The rescue shuttles were waiting, their engines running silent. Nighthawk, this is Captain Chen, she radioed. Beginning final extraction now. Copy that, Captain. Be advised, the Kretak are starting to realize something is wrong. Their pheromone levels are normalizing. Sarah quickened her pace. They'd gotten most of the children aboard the shuttles when alarms began blaring throughout the station. Red lights flashed in the corridors as the Kretak finally noticed that their hostages were disappearing. All teams, accelerate extraction immediately, Sarah ordered. We're blown. The last group of children was just boarding Sarah's shuttle when heavy footsteps echoed through the maintenance bay. A Kretak war party rounded the corner, their weapons raised and their insectoid faces twisted with rage. Sarah stepped between the aliens and the shuttle full of children. Lieutenant Cass, get them out of here now. Captain, what about you? Just go. The shuttle's engines roared to life as Sarah faced down 6 heavily armed Kretak warriors. She was wearing light combat armor and carrying a standard sidearm. By all military calculations, she was about to die. The lead Kretak chittered something in his native language that roughly translated to, foolish child. Yeah, Sarah replied in perfect Kretak. I get that a lot. She triggered the emergency decontamination system, filling the bay with suppression foam while simultaneously activating her armor's personal shield and drawing her weapon in one fluid motion. The Kretak fired blind into the white foam, their shots going wide. Sarah's return fire was precise and devastating. Training with alien weapons experts across the galaxy had taught her exactly where each species was most vulnerable. The Kretak warriors dropped one by one, more surprised than injured, their nervous systems temporarily paralyzed by perfectly placed stun shots. All rescue teams. Report status, she called, out as the foam began to clear. Agricultural. Station clear, came Morrison's voice. All civilians evacuated. Mining platform clear, reported Ornak. No casualties. Civilian hub clear, Sarah added, stepping over the unconscious Kretak. All hostages recovered. She made it to her shuttle just as Kretak reinforcements arrived. The rescue fleet jumped to hyperspace with seconds to spare, leaving behind a very confused group of alien warriors who couldn't understand how their perfect hostage situation had fallen apart so completely. Mission accomplished. Sarah reported to Admiral Tekvar. 40,000 civilians recovered, 0 casualties. The Kretak rebellion just became a lot less leverage without their hostages. Outstanding work, Captain. When can you report for debriefing? Sarah checked her watch. Actually, Admiral, chemistry class ended about an hour ago. I think I can make it back for math. Mrs. Anderson's algebra class was in full swing when Sarah slipped through the back door, still smelling faintly of shuttle fuel and suppression foam. She'd managed to clean most of the alien pheromone residue off her clothes, but there was nothing she could do about the adrenaline still coursing through her system. Miss Chen, Mrs. Anderson said without looking up from the whiteboard. Nice of you to join us. Please take your seat. Sarah made her way to her usual desk in the back corner, trying to ignore the stares and whispers from her classmates. Jessica Martinez leaned over from the next desk. Where were you? Mr. Peterson was really mad about you missing the rest of the chemistry test. Dentist appointment. Sarah lied smoothly. Emergency root canal. You don't look like you went to the dentist. Sarah pulled out her algebra textbook and tried to focus on the lesson. Mrs. Anderson was explaining quadratic equations, something about finding unknown variables. It was almost funny, considering she'd just spent the last 3 hours solving for unknown variables that included alien psychology, orbital mechanics, and the precise timing needed to evacuate 40,000 people without getting anyone killed. Her phone buzzed with a text message. Sarah glanced at it carefully, making sure Mrs. Anderson wasn't looking. The message was from Admiral Tekvar. Galactic Council wants to award you the Order of Valor. Ceremony next week. Sarah quickly typed back, Can we do it after school? I've got a history test that day. Miss Chen? Mrs. Anderson's voice cut through her thoughts. Since you're so interested in your phone, perhaps you'd like to solve the equation on the board. Sarah looked up to see a complex quadratic formula written in chalk. Around her, 28 teenagers waited to see if the weird girl who disappeared during tests would humiliate herself in front of the class. X equals -4 and +7, Sarah said without hesitation. Mrs. Anderson checked her answer key, frowning. That's correct. How did you solve it so quickly? Pattern recognition, Sarah replied honestly. When you'd programmed targeting computers for plasma cannons, High school math became relatively simple. After class, Sarah headed to her locker, hoping to grab her history textbook and find a quiet place to eat lunch. Instead, she found the usual group waiting for her. Brad Morrison, star quarterback and professional bully, flanked by his friends Tyler and Sean. "Well, well," Brad said, blocking her locker. "If it isn't disappearing Chen dentist appointment, huh? Funny, my mom works at Dr. Wilson's office. Says you've never been a patient there." Sarah sighed inwardly. Brad Morrison was the kind of problem she couldn't solve with tactics or alien technology. He was just a teenage boy with too much social power and not enough intelligence to use it wisely. "Maybe it was a different dentist," she said, trying to reach around him to her locker. "Or maybe you're lying. Again. Just like when you said you were sick last month. And the month before. Where do you really go, Chen? Some kind of special therapy?" The comment stung more than Sarah expected. In a way, he wasn't wrong. Her military service was a kind of therapy, a place where being different was an asset instead of a liability. "Leave me alone, Brad." "Or what? You'll run away again? That's what you're good at, right? Running away when things get tough?" Sarah's hands clenched into fists. 3 hours ago, she'd faced down 6 Kretak warriors without flinching. She'd coordinated a complex rescue mission and saved 40,000 lives. But standing in a high school hallway being taunted by a 17-year-old boy, she felt smaller than she had in years. "I'm not running," she said quietly. "Prove it," Brad challenged. "Fight back for once instead of just disappearing whenever." "Brad Morrison, report to the principal's office immediately." Everyone turned to see Vice Principal Hayes approaching with a stern expression. Behind him walked a tall woman in a crisp business suit that Sarah recognized immediately. Commander Elena Vasquez, Galactic Defense Force Intelligence Division. "Miss Chen," Commander Vasquez said with a slight smile, "your guidance counselor asked me to speak with you about college opportunities. Do you have a moment?" Sarah nodded, grateful for the interruption. As they walked away, she could hear Brad and his friends grumbling about the unfairness of adults interfering in student business. "Thank you," Sarah said when they were out of earshot. "Don't mention it, though I have to say, watching you show restraint there was almost painful. I've seen you disarm Thorian berserkers with your bare hands." "Different kind of combat," Sarah replied. "With the Thorians, the rules are clear. Here, everything is complicated." Commander Vasquez led her to an empty classroom and activated a privacy screen generator. The device would make their conversation inaudible to anyone outside the room. "Admiral Thekvar sent me to check on you," she said. "He's concerned that maintaining a double life is becoming more difficult." "I'm fine. Are you?" "Because from where I stand, it looks like you're fighting a war on 2 fronts. One in space where you're a decorated hero, and one here where you're just trying to survive high school." Sarah slumped into a desk chair. "Sometimes I think the space battles are easier." "They probably are. When was the last time you had a normal teenage experience? Gone to a party? Had a crush? Made a friend who didn't know about your military service? I don't have time for that stuff. Sarah, you're 17 years old. You should have time for that stuff. The galaxy will keep spinning if you take a weekend off." Sarah's phone buzzed again. Another emergency alert. This time it was a Vorthak incursion near the Rigel system. They were requesting immediate assistance. Commander Vasquez saw her expression change. "You're thinking about taking that mission, aren't you? 40 million people live in that system. And there are other captains who can handle it. Captain Morrison, Captain Okafor, Captain Singh. You're not the only human in the Defense Force, Sarah. You're just the youngest." Sarah stared at the alert message. Every instinct told her to respond, to take the mission, to do what she'd been trained to do. But for the first time in years, she hesitated. "What if I'm not good at being a normal teenager?" she asked quietly. "What if you are?" Commander Vasquez replied. "What if that's exactly what you've been missing?" Sarah closed the alert without responding. For the next few hours, she was going to try something more terrifying than any alien invasion. She was going to try being a normal high school student. The question was, could the galaxy survive without her for one afternoon? For the first time in 3 years, Sarah Chen sat through an entire school day without receiving a single emergency military communication. She turned off her tactical alerts, ignored the priority channels, and even set her military comm to auto-decline any calls from Admiral Thekvar. It felt strange and wrong, like deliberately ignoring a fire alarm. During lunch, instead of reviewing mission briefings, she found herself sitting in the cafeteria, watching her classmates navigate the complex social dynamics of high school. It was fascinating in its own way, almost like studying an alien culture. "Is anyone sitting here?" Sarah looked up to find Amy Nakamura, a quiet girl from her physics class, holding a lunch tray and looking nervous. "No, go ahead," Sarah replied, genuinely surprised. No one ever voluntarily sat with her. Amy sat down carefully as if she expected Sarah to suddenly disappear. "I wanted to thank you for what you did in physics yesterday. When Mr. Garcia was asking about orbital mechanics and you answered that question about satellite trajectories, it really helped me understand the concept." Sarah had answered the question without thinking, drawing on her practical experience with actual orbital mechanics. "It was nothing. It wasn't nothing to me. I've been struggling with physics all semester." Amy hesitated, then added, "I know people think you're weird, but I think you're just really smart. Scary smart sometimes." Scary smart was probably the most accurate description anyone had ever given her. Sarah almost smiled. "Are you okay?" Amy asked. "You look tired." Sarah was tired. The rescue mission that morning had taken more out of her than she'd realized, and trying to act normal was proving to be emotionally exhausting. "Just a long day," she said. "Want to talk about it? Sometimes it helps." Sarah stared at Amy's open, friendly face. What would happen if she told the truth? If she said she was tired because she'd spent the morning saving 40,000 hostages from alien terrorists and was now trying to figure out how to balance galactic warfare with trigonometry homework? "It's complicated," she said instead. "Most things are," Amy replied. "That's what makes them interesting." Before Sarah could respond, her physics teacher, Mr. Garcia, approached their table carrying a newspaper. "Miss Chen, I thought you might find this interesting," he said, placing the paper in front of her. The headline read, "Mysterious Rescue Operation Saves Thousands from Alien Terrorists." Below it was a grainy photo of what looked suspiciously like Galactic Defense Force shuttles near an orbital station. Sarah's blood went cold. Military operations were supposed to be classified. The general public wasn't supposed to know about the ongoing conflicts between various alien species, let alone humanity's role in policing them. "Fascinating stuff," Mr. Garcia continued. "According to the article, whoever planned this rescue operation used some kind of advanced psychological warfare to turn the terrorists against each other. The military analysts quoted in the story say it was either brilliant or completely insane." "Why both?" Amy asked, reading over Sarah's shoulder. "Because it required an intimate understanding of alien psychology, expert timing, and a willingness to bet thousands of lives on an untested theory. The kind of plan that could only come from someone with extensive combat experience and a deep knowledge of xenobiology." Sarah tried to keep her expression neutral while internally calculating how long it would take for someone to connect the dots. The rescue had happened this morning. She'd been absent from chemistry class with a flimsy excuse, and now her physics teacher was discussing the very operation she'd commanded. "Pretty cool that humans are apparently involved in this stuff," Amy said. "Makes you wonder if there are people like that walking around among us, you know? Secret heroes." "I doubt it," Sarah replied quickly. "I mean, what are the odds that someone like that would be in high school?" Mr. Garcia studied her face carefully. "You'd be surprised, Miss Chen. Sometimes extraordinary people hide in the most ordinary places." The bell rang, ending lunch period. As students gathered their things, Mr. Garcia leaned closer to Sarah. "If you ever want to discuss advanced physics applications," he said quietly, "my classroom is always open, and I mean any applications, theoretical or otherwise." He walked away, leaving Sarah staring after him with the uncomfortable feeling that her cover might not be as solid as she'd thought. "He's weird sometimes," Amy said, "but he's a good teacher. Are you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." Sarah's military communicator, disguised as a regular phone, was buzzing insistently in her backpack. She'd been ignoring it for hours, but now she could see multiple urgent alerts stacking up on the screen. "Amy," she said suddenly, "what's it like?"
"What's what like?"
"Being normal. Having a regular life. Not having to worry about—" She gestured vaguely at the newspaper. "All this crazy stuff happening in space." Amy looked confused. "I don't know. I mean, it's just life, right? School, homework, worrying about tests and boys and whether your parents are going to let you get your driver's license. Normal stuff seems pretty boring compared to what's out there." She pointed at the newspaper article. Sometimes I wish I could be part of something bigger, you know? Something important. Sarah wanted to tell her that. Something important usually involved people shooting at you in the vacuum of space, and that normal problems like driver's licenses and homework were actually privileges that billions of beings across the galaxy would kill for. Instead, she said, be careful what you wish for. Her communicator buzzed again. This time the alert was marked Priority Alpha, Galaxy-ending emergency. The kind of call she absolutely could not ignore. Sarah looked at Amy, who was still talking about how exciting it would be to meet real space heroes. She looked at the newspaper article describing her own mission. She looked at the normal teenage life she'd been trying to experience for exactly one day. I have to go, she said, standing up. Where? Classes aren't over yet. Dentist appointment, Sarah lied, already heading for the exit. Emergency root canal. As she reached the door, she heard Amy call after her. Sarah? I hope you figure out whatever's bothering you. And if you ever want to talk about normal stuff, I'm around. Sarah paused in the doorway, looking back at the first person who'd offered to be her friend in years. Amy was sitting alone at the lunch table, surrounded by the comfortable chaos of normal teenage life. For a moment, Sarah considered staying, letting someone else save the galaxy for once, being the normal teenage girl that part of her desperately wanted to be. Then her communicator delivered the details of the emergency. Hostile fleet moving toward Earth. All available defenders needed immediately. The choice, as always, wasn't really a choice at all. Sarah Chen, captain in the Galactic Defense Force, walked out of Jefferson High School and toward whatever new crisis awaited her among the stars. Sarah Chen, high school student, would have to wait for another day, if there was another day. The enemy fleet was massive. Sarah stood on the bridge of the flagship Prometheus, staring at a tactical display that showed 300 hegemony dreadnoughts approaching Earth's solar system. The alien ships were sleek and deadly, their biomechanical hulls pulsing with malevolent energy. Captain, Admiral Thekvar's voice was grim over the comm. The hegemony is demanding Earth's surrender. They claim humanity has violated galactic law by interfering in the affairs of other species. Our interfering, Sarah said bitterly, or my interfering. They mentioned the Kretak incident specifically. Someone leaked information about human involvement in Defense Force operations. Sarah closed her eyes. Her attempts to save lives had painted a target on her entire homeworld. Every person she'd grown up with, every classmate who barely knew she existed, was now in danger because of her actions. How long until they reach Earth? She asked. 6 hours. Maybe less. Sarah looked around the bridge. She had 40 ships at her command, the largest human fleet ever assembled. It was impressive by Earth standards, but laughably inadequate against 300 hegemony dreadnoughts. Admiral, I need you to patch me through to Jefferson High School. There's something I have to do. 20 minutes later, Amy Nakamura was standing in the principal's office, confused and worried. The call had come through the main office. Emergency contact for Sarah Chen. Please locate student Amy Nakamura immediately. Hello, Amy. Sarah's voice came through the secure communicator they'd given her. I need to tell you something important. Sarah? Where are you? Everyone's been asking about you disappearing again. I'm in space. Amy. About 6 billion miles from Earth. Commanding a fleet of starships and trying to figure out how to stop an alien invasion. There was a long pause. Okay, that's either the most creative excuse for missing class I've ever heard, or you're having some kind of breakdown. Check your phone. Look up news reports about mysterious rescue operations. Cross-reference them with dates when I've been absent from school. Look at the timing of emergency alerts in various star systems and compare them to my disappearances. Another pause, this one longer. Sarah could hear typing in the background. Oh my God, Amy whispered. It's all connected. The dates match perfectly. Sarah, are you really? Captain Sarah Chen, Galactic Defense Force, and right now I need your help. My help? I'm just a high school student. So am I when I'm not saving the galaxy. Amy, there's a fleet of alien warships heading for Earth. They want to eliminate humanity because they consider us too dangerous to exist. They might be right. Sarah took a breath before continuing. In about 5 hours, they're going to arrive in our solar system. I have 40 ships to stop 300. The math doesn't work. What can I possibly do? I need you to be my anchor, Sarah said. For 3 years, I've been fighting battles across the galaxy. I've saved millions of lives and prevented dozens of wars, but I've never fought for my home before. I've never had someone I cared about personally in danger. Someone you care about? You offered to be my friend yesterday, Amy. You're the first person who's done that in years. You represent everything I've been trying to protect. Everything that makes humanity worth defending. I need you to stay on the line with me. Keep me grounded. Remind me who I'm fighting for. Through the communicator, Amy's voice was shaking. Sarah, I don't know how to help save the world. You don't have to save the world. You just have to be yourself. Be normal, be human. Show me what I'm fighting to preserve. The next 5 hours were the strangest of Amy's life. She sat in an empty classroom, talking to her friend who was apparently commanding a space fleet. Sometimes Sarah would disappear for minutes at a time, shouting tactical commands that Amy didn't understand. Other times they talked about normal things, homework, movies, what Amy planned to do after graduation. Contact in 1 hour, Sarah reported during one of their conversations. How are you holding up? I'm terrified, Amy admitted, but also kind of amazed. All this time I thought my life was boring. Turns out my friend is literally saving the galaxy on a regular basis. I wish I could give you boring, Sarah said. I wish I could give everyone boring. Boring is safe. Boring means no one is trying to kill you. Sarah, can I ask you something? Sure. Are we going to win? There was a long pause. I don't know. The odds aren't good. But I have advantages they don't expect. Like what? I'm human. We're really good at improvising when things look hopeless. And I have something they'll never understand. What? I have someone to come home to. The final battle was unlike anything in galactic military history. Sarah's 40 ships faced 300 hegemony dreadnoughts in Earth's outer solar system, near Jupiter's orbit. The engagement should have lasted minutes, with humanity's fleet being completely destroyed. Instead, it lasted 6 hours. Sarah fought like someone possessed, using every trick she'd learned in 3 years of galactic warfare. She turned the enemy's formation against them, used Jupiter's gravity well as a weapon, and coordinated attacks with a precision that defied belief. But most importantly, she fought with something the hegemony had never encountered: absolute determination born from having something precious to protect. When the last hegemony ship finally retreated, Sarah's fleet was battered but victorious. 12 human ships had been destroyed, but Earth was safe. Status report, she called out. All remaining ships operational, came Lieutenant Cass's voice. Casualties minimal. Earth is secure. Sarah slumped in her command chair, exhausted beyond description. Amy, you still there? I'm here. Are you okay? I'm tired. But we won. You can go home now. Go back to your normal life, Sarah. I don't think I want a normal life anymore. What do you mean? I want to help. I want to do what you do. I want to apply to the Defense Force Academy. Sarah smiled for the first time in hours. Are you sure? It's dangerous work. Someone has to do it. And after today, I understand why. Plus, I figure if you can handle high school and saving the galaxy, the least I can do is try to keep up. Later that evening, Sarah Chen walked back into Jefferson High School. The hallways were empty, but the lights were still on in the physics classroom. She found Mr. Garcia waiting for her. Captain Chen, he said formally, I thought you might stop by. How long have you known? Since your first day. I used to work for NASA before I became a teacher. I still have contacts in the space program. When a 17-year-old girl starts demonstrating expert knowledge of orbital mechanics and xenobiology, people notice. Why didn't you say anything? Mr. Garcia smiled. Because you were exactly where you needed to be, fighting battles among the stars, and fighting battles in high school hallways. Both are important. Both make you human. He handed her a makeup test. Chemistry. Mr. Peterson left it for you. Sarah looked at the test, then at her teacher. What if I fail? Then you retake it. That's what normal students do. Sarah sat down at a desk and picked up a pencil. Outside the windows, stars twinkled in the night sky, and she knew that somewhere among them, other battles were being fought by other heroes. But for now, she had a chemistry test to finish, and for the first time in years, that seemed like exactly the right place to be. The galaxy would always need Captain Chen, but tonight Sarah Chen was just a high school student, taking a makeup test and planning to have lunch with her friend tomorrow. Both versions of herself were exactly who she was meant to be.